Life began here in Britain more than 1 billion years ago. And when dinosaurs and other strange creatures roamed our land, they left fascinating clues behind. The fossil detectives are on the trail of that evidence throughout the British Isles. We'll uncover Britain's best preserved dinosaur, go fossil hunting with a real rock star, Alex James from Blur, and meet a relative of the dinosaurs, alive and well today. Here on the Jurassic Coast, we'll see how the present connects to the past and track down extraordinary evidence of prehistoric times.
We're on a mission to find and analyse that evidence, to unlock the secrets of the past and discover lost worlds. So get ready for some time travel with the Fossil Detectives.
This is the real Jurassic Park. The Jurassic Coast stretches along 155 kilometres of the southwest coastline. Earth's history is recorded in its rocks, and it's become famous as one of the best places in the world to collect fossils. Some of the most amazing remnants of prehistoric life ever found were once buried here. And some of Britain's most famous fossil hunters have explored here too.
You've probably heard the old tongue twister. She sells seashells on the seashore. Well, legend suggests that it was written about a young Victorian fossil hunter called Mary Anning. Now, Mary used to come collecting at these very cliffs here at Charmouth, and she became world famous for her strange and exciting sea monster discoveries.
Mary Anning used to search up and down the beach here on the southwest coast in the early 19th century, scanning the Dorset shoreline as she walked from her hometown of Lyme Regis up here to Charmouth and beyond. She used to sell the fossils she unearthed to museums and to collectors. The fossilised bones she found proved to be the basis for a new step forward in science. This precious watercolour of ancient Dorset was based on Mary's fossil finds. Marine creatures, like the first discovered plesiosaur, and the first complete ichthyosaur. A magical insight into what Victorians imagined prehistoric life to look like when the Jurassic seas were teeming with mystical creatures. Mary devoted her life to searching out evidence of these creatures, inspiring scientists and children alike. So much so, she became known as the Princess of Paleontology. Charmouth was the location of some of Mary's most impressive fossil finds, and it's still one of the best places in Britain to go fossil hunting. And just recently, there's been another amazing discovery here. One of the most beautifully preserved dinosaurs ever found. The original bones have been turned into stone through the process of fossilization. But what makes this dinosaur so special is that almost the whole skeleton was found, and that is extremely rare. The fossil detectives have the chance to glimpse it behind the scenes, here at Bristol City Museum. The museum is borrowing the dinosaur and arranging to put it on display. It's taken 5 years so far to excavate and prepare. But what is this creature? Tim Ewan works at the museum.
The teeth have got these little grooves at the cutting edges, and that's a little bit like a steak knife in that it's self-sharpening. So they're quite nicely evolved, and the jaw just went up and down to slice up the vegetation. They couldn't actually move their jaw from side to side.
It's a plant-eating dinosaur called Scelidosaurus. These bones are about 190 million years old, dating from the Jurassic. But this is just the beginning of the jigsaw puzzle. All these pieces will need to be put together to get a better idea of what the animal would have looked like. Here, in its jaw, if you look carefully, you can see 2 crocodile teeth.
So these are the animal's teeth here, and then the crocodile teeth you can just see poking through there, and then turn it round. You can see it coming down there, so it's right in the centre of the animal's mouth.
No one knows for sure how they got into the mouth of a herbivorous creature. But we can find out more about this particular fossil by making a date with its body double. At the Charmouth Heritage Centre, not far from where the dinosaur was actually found, they are displaying a cast of the bones Tim was working on at the museum. Here, they've been able to mount the replica of the skeleton in exactly the position it was found in. You can see it looks virtually identical to the fossilised bones.
The thing that's really special about this is it's nearly complete. We've got about 90% of the bones still preserved here.
The Scelidosaur fossil is so remarkable because the process of fossilisation took place unusually quickly, in perhaps just a couple of years.
So what would a Scelidosaurus have looked like then when it was alive?
Well, starting at the head, on the nose of the dinosaur, it would have had a beak. And this would have allowed it to have cropped plants. Behind the cheek, it would have had teeth which would have chopped up the vegetation that it was eating. It had a heavy eyebrow to protect the eye, 2 little horns at the back of the head. Coming down the neck, there's got this really heavy armour. And this armour, you can see, goes across the length of the animal. It had a big pot belly which allowed it to digest lots of vegetation. Walked on all fours, was about 4 metres long, it weighed about half a tonne, so it's about the size and weight of a small car.
Now, the fossil was found in marine sediments, and yet this is a land-dwelling dinosaur. So how did it end up fossilised at the bottom of the sea?
Well, it's a really sad story, actually. This poor dinosaur was out minding its own business, eating some vegetation in a river valley, we think. And there was a big flash flood, and this dinosaur was caught up in the floodwaters and washed out to sea, where it sadly drowned, and then was buried quickly as well by a lot of sediment. Very soon after, calcite started growing in and around the dinosaur remains themselves. And this protected them from being crushed and also kept it all in its life position like we can see here.
Now, what evidence do you really have to support that theory, apart from that it was found in marine sediments?
Well, the limbs are swept back, which looks as though it's been, as it was falling down through the water column, they've been drifted slightly back. But the other real key evidence is actually if we look at the gullet.
Its throat, you mean?
That's right. It's actually got this sort of digested, sort of mushy looking stuff in it. And this, we think, is actually dinosaur vomit. The reason why that's interesting for our story is because the thing that animals do when they drown is throw up. And we think that this is the remains of the vomit as it was drowning in its death throes.
A sad and sorry end, but a fascinating insight into such a magnificent beast. Charmouth, where the Scelidosaur was found, is part of what has become known as the Jurassic Coast. The name capitalises on the success of the Hollywood film. It's England's only natural World Heritage Site, stretching from Swanage to Exmouth. 185 million years of geological history laid out in the cliffs for anyone to come and have a look. But unlike the fictional Jurassic Park, this is real, and you can find evidence of prehistoric life here every single day. As you travel east to west, you're travelling back through the millennia, from the younger Cretaceous through to Jurassic and Triassic rocks. Anjana Katwa is one of our fossil detectives. Her passion for the Jurassic Coast inspired her to take the job of education coordinator for the region.
And you know, what's so special about this stretch of coastline? I mean, why has it got World Heritage status?
It's one of the most incredible coastlines in the world because you can see 185 million years of geological time in just 95 miles of coastline.
How does that work? So if you walk along that 95 miles, you walk through that length of time?
You do, it's absolutely incredible, and it's just a coincidence of the way the rocks have been laid down. Towards East Devon, you see these beautiful red sandstones formed during the Triassic period, about 250 million years ago. And then as we move eastwards across the coast, we come to places like Lyme Regis and Charmouth, where you have these enormous sequences of Jurassic marine shales and clays.
And is that what we're looking at here, these layered rocks behind us?
Well, this is even more incredible. What we're looking at here is what used to be a river delta, a bit like the delta in northern Egypt.
Right, so the mouth of a big river system.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just all the sediments layered up. It's absolutely stunning, isn't it?
The cliffs here in Dorset are some of the most striking sedimentary rock formations in Britain. Here, you can see honeycomb-like structures on the sides of the cliffs, patterns of erosion linked to areas where ancient marine creatures left evidence of their activity.
What about fossils though? You've brought along some here. What is this?
This is an amazing fossil. It actually just came out of the clay like this. It's a remnant of a fish, and these are the scales. So the fish fell to the bottom of the seabed and was completely squashed, and this is what we see today.
It's wonderful. So that's either side of the fish body, just squashed flat.
Just squashed flat.
These are absolutely beautiful. Can you find this kind of ammonite in this area?
Absolutely. If you walk along the beaches are the best place to look for fossils, and the waves do the work for you. They wash the fossils out of the cliffs, and if you're lucky enough, you might find a peep of an ammonite poking out, and you need those eyes. Your eyes are the best tools to look for fossils. And they're really interesting because they're from two different periods. They're separated probably about 20 or 30 million years of time.
So although these are the same types of creatures, you can see how different they look, separated by millions of years.
And you know, when you think about the whole Jurassic Coast, what do you think your favourite aspects of it are?
I think one of my favourite aspects is how it's constantly evolving and changing. It's one of the most dynamic coastlines in the world.
And just like these ammonites, the coastline itself is constantly changing through time. Paleontology unlocks the secrets of the past. And you can find the legacy of prehistoric monsters even today. There are still relatives of the dinosaurs around us all over the world, even here on the Jurassic Coast. It may be hard to believe,
But birds are the descendants of a particular group of carnivorous dinosaur. A beautiful tawny eagle like this one, Sasha, is related to Tyrannosaurus rex.
Sasha's an African bird of prey. Trained by a local falconer here in the southwest, she may not look much like a dinosaur, but there are clues in her plumage, her beak, and her talons which can reveal more. Phil Manning is another of our fossil detectives. He can explain how birds are related to creatures that have been extinct for millions of years.
Phil, it's hard to grasp this concept that birds like Sasha here are related directly to dinosaurs.
For me, it's not, because just by looking at all birds on the planet, they look like dinosaurs to me. That's because I'm used to studying the bones of dinosaurs from the fossil record, some which have feathers, which make it absolutely clear we can see a wonderful evolutionary link between dinosaurs and birds.
And that's why Sasha brings Jurassic Park to life, right here on the Jurassic coast, where her ancestors used to live.
And what about physically? Can you compare, say, Sasha, to an example of a dinosaur?
Absolutely. Well, let's just look at these wonderful feet. They look so dinosaurian, and you can see where they translate slowly into feathers. And really, all feathers are highly derived scales.
The dinosaurs are a group of extinct reptiles that used to live exclusively on the land. Other prehistoric reptiles that swam in the sea or flew in the sky weren't dinosaurs. So Sasha's a descendant not of pterodactyls that used to fly like birds, but of carnivorous dinosaurs like Allosaurus.
Take a big carnivorous dinosaur like Allosaurus. How does that link to Sasha?
Well, let's start in the egg. Both lay eggs, which is pretty impressive to start with. But when you actually study the growth of a bird within its egg, from its tiny little embryo to become a full bird, it actually replays some of the evolutionary past. When we look at some of the bones, especially in the feet. Now, looking at the feet of Sasha, we've got 3 toes, as we see in many of the predatory dinosaurs, but we move up into what is now a single bone. Now, in predatory dinosaurs like Allosaurus, it is still 3 separate bones. It hasn't fused together. Now, Allosaurus was this wonderful predatory dinosaur from the Jurassic. And it has powerful hind legs, a big rump, long tapering tail, muscular tail, a big chest, and this bulldog-like neck, very powerful neck, into a long, drawn-out skull, quite narrow, but with these wonderfully backwardly curved serrated teeth. Powerful forearms with 3 fingers used for grasping prey. Typical for a predator.
But not typical of a bird. Birds don't have teeth. So why not?
Well, there's this wonderful expression, as rare as hen's teeth, which is referring to this strange occurrence when literally you have a chicken with teeth. Now, that is when let's go back into the DNA again, because some of this fossil DNA can accidentally get turned on if a specific chemical is present when the chick is developing in its egg. And when it hatches out, if this gene has been turned on, you'll have a chicken with teeth. So
that's like a throwback to being a dinosaur.
Absolutely. It's the fossil record coming back to haunt the birds. Birds are dinosaurs.
There's another legacy from when the dinosaurs were alive, and it's buried deep here on the Jurassic coast. Formed originally in Jurassic times, this is the story of black gold. Oil. Oil is a fossil fuel, our direct connection to a vanished prehistoric world, even though we don't tend to think about it in that way. Here in Britain, we use almost 2 million barrels of oil a day. For now, we rely on it to fuel our houses, our cars, our lives. Here in Dorset, just inland from the Jurassic coast, this is Britain's largest onshore oil field. And the biggest in the whole of Western Europe, with an area of almost 200 square kilometres. BP's Wytch Farm oil field has around 100 wells. But this is also an area of outstanding natural beauty. So it's critical that conservation work is undertaken to minimise any damage to the environment. One section is only accessible by boat, Fursey Island in Poole Harbour. Throughout the whole area, there are numerous sites of special scientific interest. So the oil wells are small and screened by trees, and special drilling techniques are used here, designed to minimise disruption to the local ecology.
This is what they extract here, oil. It's hard to imagine that this dark, almost treacly-like substance is evidence of prehistoric life, but that's exactly what it is. Oil and natural gas are the chemical residues of countless microscopic animals, plants and bacteria that lived in the sea millions of years ago. Now, the oil from here comes from Jurassic times, back when the dinosaurs were alive.
Nobody knows exactly how much fossil fuel may be left in the world. But estimates suggest the field here, which started producing crude oil in 1979, will still be extracting oil and natural gas for another 15 years. In the meantime, the birds that live here, the nearest thing Wych Farm has to dinosaurs these days, are another visible reminder of the area's Jurassic legacy. Our present links us to our past in so many ways. One way to make that connection is to find and touch the evidence of prehistoric lives ourselves. And where better than here? Lulworth Cove is a distinctive part of the coastline, attracting admirers from all over the world, including a real rock star with a rock-solid passion for fossils. Alex James, the bassist from the Britpop band Blur, has recently developed a career as a cheesemaker.
Taxi drivers, they liked Blur, but they love cheese. They love cheese.
But what's less well known is that ever since he was a little boy, he's been an avid fossil collector.
Fossils really came as part of a whole package of these kind of beaches. I grew up in Bournemouth, which is 25 miles down the coast.
So you're a local lad then?
Yeah. This whole stretch of coastline is just dripping with fossils. They're falling out of the cliffs. This is ammonite country we're in now. That was what you were always hoping to find. I mean, I never found anything like this, but it didn't stop me trying. I do find ammonites particularly intriguing. Often diagrams of the beginning of time are sort of done like that, aren't they? And that's a proper logarithmic spiral. You know, it's a very mathematical structure. It suggests infinity in all kinds of ways.
Ammonites were abundant in the Jurassic seas. There are thousands of ammonite fossils on the south coast. But you've got to be careful where you look for them.
It's important that you're kind of responsible, I suppose. I mean, people do go hammering into the cliffs. And I mean, it's stupid to do it, actually, in the cliff face anyway, because people standing underneath big overhangs, like chiseling away the cliff, it's like sitting on a branch and sawing it off.
But there's no need, is there? You can find everything along the beach, especially along this Jurassic coastline. Yeah, these are little brachiopods that you can find just along the coast down here. These are from the Upper Jurassic.
It's like a scary version of a cockle. It's like a cockle with secret weapons.
I mean, these things you don't need to hammer. You can just pick them up if you're lucky.
Wow, what's that's an urchin?
Yes.
See, I had one of these that somebody gave to me, one of my parents' friends, and it was the sort of jewel of my collection. But I didn't really love it as much as the ones that I'd found myself, actually. It was much nicer to try and make your own discovery, and that kind of kept us burning with passion, the idea of making a unique discovery. And it was possible that we could do that. Some important finds have been made by children. I think there was a big footprint of some unknown monster was discovered on the Isle of Wight, and we were all really jealous of the kid who discovered that. Children have that natural inquisitiveness that you probably lose a little bit when you're an adult. I remember a memorable Cub Scout expedition to Charmouth. There was a lot of belemnites up there, those long sort of coney, pointy things. And I'd never been there before, and it was amazing.
Belemnites were squid-like creatures that captured their prey with tentacles. Belemnites became extinct at the same time as ammonites disappeared from our seas. But these fossils connect us to that lost world.
They come alive when you see them in situ. I think museums are great and they're always full of brilliant specimens, but it's actually, I think the real joy is actually discovering them for yourself, because you're suddenly the first person to see something that existed just an inconceivable amount of time ago. I mean, I think all children are fascinated by fossils and dinosaurs. It's the idea of kind of monsters that appeals, isn't it, I think? Probably more than anything, to start with. But I think this sort of philosophical side of it that becomes more beautiful as you get older. When you see a fossil, it's like you're coming face to face with the past. It's like the past is still kissing the present somehow. Just makes you aware of what a kind of ever-changing, infinite universe we live in. It's a really important thing to hold on to.
The Jurassic Coast is the best place in the whole world where you can, quite literally, walk through time, through the Triassic, Jurassic and Cretaceous periods in geological history. There's been life on Earth for almost 4 billion years. Fossilised remains of ancient life are solid memories of worlds long gone. Without fossils, many of our land's ancient secrets would remain unknown. Fossils unlock the mysteries of the past and inspire the explorer in all of us.
For a free guide to help you to identify your fossil finds and to learn more about Open University programmes on the BBC, call 0870 010 0878 or go to open2.net.
And the next episode from The Fossil Detectives is here at 7:30 on Thursday. Next tonight, we're off to the Natural History Museum after a taster of some very special films, heading to BBC4 in a few days' time.